Welcome to Wired for Wonders Tales. Tonight's tale is called The Wicked Reputation of Stull Cemetery. Let's descend into the dark. Welcome to Stull, Kansas, a small community originally known as Deer Creek, located about 20 miles outside of Lawrence. If you consult old maps, you might even spot a deserted lane nearby, once ominously known as Devil's Road. Stull Cemetery is whispered to be a place so dark, so saturated with the occult, that local lore claims it holds the actual highway to hell. Our story begins in the late 1860s, when a group of Pennsylvania Dutch settlers, fleeing religious persecution, migrated here and built a church. The cemetery followed just 1 year later. This stone church stood for almost 2 centuries until it fell into ruin in the 20th century. Today, the town itself is largely vacant due to poor economic growth, and the cemetery grounds are patrolled constantly by county police, ready to arrest those seeking out the legends after dark. But before the legends fully took hold, there were tragedies. In the early 90s, near that old Devil's Road, a young child named Oliver tragically died after wandering into a burning field his father was clearing. Not long after, a missing man was discovered hanging from a tree in the area. It is around that old tree, a tall pine, where the most sinister parts of the Stull mythos began to take root. Local lore insisted this tree was the community's hanging tree, used for those accused of witchcraft. Near it lay a grave marked with the name Whittick, but this wasn't just any burial site. Legend proclaimed that the bones interred belonged to Satan's own child, born of ill-gotten relations with a witch who was also laid to rest nearby. It is this dark parentage that gave birth to the terrifying legend of the highway to hell. As the centuries wore on, the belief grew. Satan, they say, appears twice a year to visit the graves of his child and the child's mother. These nights fall on the spring equinox and Halloween. On these sacred, unholy evenings, a stone staircase reportedly appears within the graveyard, descending directly into the pits of hell. This staircase acts as a portal, from which Satan emerges to visit his dead and, allegedly, raise them for a night of sinful cavorting. By the 1980s, the focus of the evil shifted to the dilapidated chapel itself. Various cults and covens, drawn to isolated, dark places, reportedly used the old church for satanic and pagan rituals and witchcraft throughout the decades it was left to rot. But one of the most bizarre pieces of lore concerns the rain. Despite the church having no roof for decades, hundreds of accounts insist that if you visited the ruins on a rainy day, not a single drop of rain would fall within the parameter of the 4 walls. Even after the crumbling remains were later bulldozed, reports maintained that the space the church once occupied remained mysteriously dry. This hundreds of independent reports, long before the age of social media, is highly intriguing. Perhaps the most fantastic rumor of all is that in 1993, Pope John Paul II reportedly had his flight rerouted around the airspace of the cemetery during a visit to America. While this piece of the puzzle has never been fully proven, it certainly fueled the dark reputation of Stull. The legends grew so pervasive that they were seized upon by popular culture, bringing flocks of ghost hunters and the curious to the site, particularly around Halloween. The stories ignited the curiosity of University of Kansas students, leading to documentation of strange occurrences in the 1970s, including reports of students being grabbed by something unseen. The town's legacy is now deeply rooted in dark pop culture. The cemetery was so influential that the creator of the long-running show Supernatural chose Lawrence, Kansas, as the main character's hometown specifically due to its proximity to the Stull legend. In fact, the season 5 finale of the show, featuring a climactic battle between archangels and Lucifer himself, was set right there in Stull Cemetery. Celebrities like Kurt Cobain visited, and Ariana Grande even claimed she smelled the fumes of sulfur during her own trip. The very elements that created the legend, the tree and the church, have since faded. The church was torn down years ago, and even the famed hanging tree is gone. That infamous tree did exist, however, and it was unique. Its growth actually split a tombstone in half, belonging to a couple who died in 1879. Some theorize that local youths, mixing history with legend, used this visually dramatic detail to solidify the story that the tree had been used to hang witches, and the splitting stone was divine punishment. Whether the rituals took place, which is logically assumed, as dark people are often drawn to isolated, dark places, or the highway to hell exists, which has never been seen, Stull's wicked reputation continues to burn. As is the way with all great urban legends, they must offer us just a granule of truth to cling to, enough to make us wonder, but what if? You see, legends must remain legends, and Stull, Kansas, is proof that a little bit of history, a bit of tragedy, and a lot of desire for a collective scare can build a gateway, not necessarily to hell, but into the imagination itself. If you enjoyed this tale, please subscribe so you don't miss our next descent into the dark.